Suspected to run. Suspected to run. Commander Benji, copy.
One of my favorite non-mainstream starfighters in Star Wars is the E-Wing. I was never a big fan of the design in Legends, but the canon version got a remodel that makes it look absolutely incredible. Today, let's take a look at the design, specifications, and history of this fantastic fighter. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is the E-Wing. Design. The Frytech Incorporated E-Wing Starfighter, also known as the E-Wing Escort Fighter or E-7 E-Wing Multi-Role Starfighter, was a fairly standard starfighter design for its time. It had a long, tapering main hull with powerful sensors in the nose, a cockpit in the center, and two large downward-angled and bent wings at the rear. These wings carried its two cylindrical engines and were tipped with its main cannons. In the original Legends version, a third cannon was mounted above the cockpit, something that was widely considered both in-universe and out to be a bad move. While I don't believe anything like this has ever come up in any E-Wing related stories, it seems that this placement of the cannon would make it quite difficult to enter or exit the cockpit, especially in an emergency. I have also heard complaints that it could possibly blind the pilot, though most Starfighter-grade laser cannons were mounted with a magnetic flashback suppressor that should protect the pilot's eyes in this case. Though I have to imagine seeing the blaster bolt leave the barrel right over your head would still be distracting. Another interesting feature of the Legends E-Wing was its bespoke astromech droid model, the R7 series. These were very similar to the R2 series and most other industrial automaton astromechs, but were designed alongside the E-Wing to make them a better pair than any other combination of fighter and droid. Unfortunately, this high level of specialization made them worse for other starships than other astromechs were, and they were not normally sold to the general public because of this. The R7 was housed in a fully enclosed astromech socket behind the cockpit, giving them a much higher level of protection than astromechs in other starfighters. Plus, the R7 was also electronically shielded to protect it against power surges as strong as a near-direct hit from a Class 1 ion cannon. While I cannot find any official sources stating this to be the case, I would assume that the highly protected astromech droid would make the E-Wing a very survivable machine, giving it the ability to land safely even if the pilot were incapacitated. I mean, that would be the case for any starfighter with an astromech droid, but here the droid would be more likely to survive to save the pilot than on other fighters. The canon E-Wing, unfortunately, has an exposed astromech socket, like any other fighter that carried such a droid. This does seem a lot more practical than burying it inside the ship's hull, though. The ones seen in Ahsoka Season 1 don't appear to use R7 astromech droids, instead opting for an as-yet unidentified model of astromech based on the original inaccurate Kenner R2-D2 action figure. In fact, the one on Lieutenant Callahan's E-Wing is named KE4N4 in reference to the Kenner Toy Company. In real life, the E-Wing was designed for the Dark Empire comic in 1992, likely by writer Tom Veitch or penciler Cam Kennedy. I don't know enough about comic book production to say for sure which one would have been in charge of designing new ships for it, but if nothing else, Kennedy would have been the first one to officially illustrate it. I was not able to conclusively determine who was responsible for the live-action version of the design either, but it was most likely production designer Doug Chiang or concept artist Benjamin Last. Specifications. In Legends, the E-Wing measured 11.2 meters long by about 9 meters wide and 3 meters tall. It was slightly smaller in canon, only 10.4 meters long by about 8.5 wide and 3.2 tall. It had a top speed of 1300 kilometers per hour in atmosphere and a Class 1 or 2 hyperdrive. The Legends version was armed with 3 Taymond-Back IX-9 medium laser cannons and 2 proton torpedo launchers. The canon version has only 2 laser cannons and appears to have the proton torpedo launchers too. The E-Wing required a crew of 1 organic pilot plus 1 astromech droid, ideally an R7 series. It could carry 110 kilograms of cargo and 1 week of consumables. It cost 160 to 200,000 credits new, or 80,000 used. History. The canon history of the E-Wing is largely unknown. It was in use by at least 9 ABY, where several of them were used by a Starfighter squadron on Lothal. Much later, Baron Pa Makan owned one in his private starship collection in 34 ABY. In Legends, however, the E-Wing had a much more extensive history. After the Incom Corporation was nationalized by the Empire in 1 BBY, many of its design and engineering staff defected to the Rebellion and provided technical support for their X-Wings. After the Battle of Endor, many of these engineers got together and formed a new company, Frytech. Frytech would eventually go on to buy out Incom after the fall of the Empire, but their first major product was the E-Wing. It was initially very unpopular with the New Republic due to its laser cannons, which used a synthetic Debana gas that was prone to rapidly degrading, reducing the range and power of the E-Wing's weapons to an unacceptable degree. New Republic technicians were able to triple the power feed to the lasers to compensate for this in an emergency, but this left the ships vulnerable to a power overload. Frytech was eventually able to redesign the laser cannons to solve this problem, and this fixed E-Wing Type B was able to enter widespread service in the New Republic fleet. The E-Wing saw use in many major battles for the next few decades, battling Thrawn's rebuilt empire, defending against the Yuuzhan Vong invasion, and even fighting in the Second Galactic Civil War in 40 ABY. And that's everything there is to know about the E-Wing. Let me know what you think of this fighter and what you'd like to see next. Also, am I the only one who thinks this ship was inspired by the FA-18 Hornet? It has kind of a similar profile to me. Let me know what you think of that too, I guess. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.